Hey guys, and welcome back. So I've kind of been thinking that when I eventually get round to making a comic or making at least some character sheets and some scene designs and whatnot, I kind of need to know what the creatures in that world look like, mainly with my toxic creatures that are kind of invading. I mentioned in my video I did of Shinseki that they are kind of the essence of Earth, and to make a humanoid form they kind of utilize skin and grossness, whereas the toxic creatures tend to utilize bone and anything with a high density, just because of the toxicity rate that's able to burn through soft materials. Warning now, do not touch. So I was playing with the idea of if these toxic creatures came to Earth, how they would utilize what bone, more or less, would be around for them to utilize. And so I went pretty basic with this one. I was just looking at the idea of a gorilla with a stag head, because why not? So I wanted to scribble that down, and it did occur to me that I don't know what kind of world they would be living in when there are gorillas and stags living in close proximity to be able to utilize these bones, but it's happening. It also occurred to me that this creature would actually be one of the, I suppose, higher ability ones, because it's actually been able to keep a bone structure that more or less makes sense to each of the animals that it's been used with. Other weaker, I call them slugs. They're not really slugs, but for the sake of this, they're going to be called slugs, so they have a name. The smaller slugs, which can be anywhere from like the size of your fist to, I don't know, the size of a small dog, they wouldn't have the knowledge and experience to be able to hold bone structures together in what would be logical for anyone who knew that animal or creature to look at. So they have kind of bits and pieces. I should have drawn one of these wee slugs I have in my book, where it is just the green blob, but there are bones sticking all out of it, kind of like a porcupine, because that's how it's managed to utilize these bones that it's never been exposed to before in like a defensive mechanism. So yeah, it's kind of been fun, but there's just so many possibilities. I really need to sit down and sketch out a whole bunch more. And yeah, I think that because of the type of toxin, they would be quite radiant, and I don't know if there'd be a level of heat coming off them, but there'd definitely be glow and goo. So the main kind of god, I guess, of these toxic worlds, his heart is a very solid goo, if that makes sense. I kind of think of it like when you mix starch or corn flour with water, and you get that goop that can be very slimy and soft, but if you hit it, or if there's hard force, it becomes solid. So that's more or less what his heart looks like. It's a very basic, it's a very slimy-esque blob, but that is very much what him and his creatures are like. In comparison, which I had mentioned once again in the Shinseki video, Shinseki's heart is more like a bulb root plant style thing. Although, as you can see, it is very much a similar shape to what a regular human heart is, and that's because in this storyline, since each planet has an essence, and this essence is what is creating life and trying to sustain it, the human heart is closely modeled off Shinseki's, because the humans are this essence's main creature that they are developing and trying to evolve and whatnot. So keeping them somewhat similar to their own structure helps them as an essence understand at least the physical workings of them. And so yeah, apart from obviously that their heart is a very bulb root-esque looking thing, and it does have muscular similarities, but that is really just because of plant textures, I guess. And yeah, so they've kept their heart design as a model of what their creatures design will look like, and you'll find that with the toxic creatures as well. They all have kind of a round, bulbous, more solid center, which is where their toxins kind of originate from. So they all kind of start from this one lump of goo, for lack of better wording at the moment. Whereas Shinseki's creatures, they all start from a heart. It is the first thing that is made. It is where they grow from, similar to when Shinseki needs to take a human-esque or creature-esque form. It is their heart that is the center of that structure. And while anything that grows from the heart is what defines their form, any of that can take damage, and of course it's not pleasant, but as long as the heart doesn't take the damage, they're actually fine. But you'll see with Shinseki, once their heart grows the vines and the root structures and whatever else, even leaves and floral things depending on what they are trying to portray themselves as, they will then utilize the skin, I guess. They make the structure from the plant-esqueness, and then they utilize skin from other creatures and humans to, I don't know, act as a skin suit. Yep, that's pretty much what it is. Shinseki is a vine plant creature that walks around in a skin suit when they need something, which is not terrifying or gross at all, but that's just how they work. I wanted to do a quick comparison as well. So Shinseki's main messenger, I guess, is a naga human snake person called Haman, and he is very, very, very old. He's not nearly as old as the essences, but he was one of the first creatures that Shinseki had made. And the way Shinseki was making creatures was they had the human design, but they thought they would be too fragile. So in the beginning, there was a lot of experimentation where Shinseki was taking their original design, I guess, of humans and trying to cross them with other creatures they had already made to inhabit the world. And so, yeah, originally there were a lot of these hybrids. Unfortunately, because it knocked the balance a lot, once Shinseki had decided, you know what, this is too much to handle, the powers and everything were just a bit too much for them, so they cut it back down to having just normal human creatures. But there are a select few that they did keep around as their main helpers that have helped influence and guide. So not all the hybrid creatures are explicitly, you don't just look at them and think, yep, that's a hybrid. They are very subtle changes, subtle blends between creatures, and they are quite often the influences, some of the main influences in this world, and they act on Shinseki's behalf to influence how they want society to evolve. And then I've just done a wee sketch of a little toxic landscape there of when these creatures have come in and they've started influencing the earth in their own ways, and a wee verses of, so we have Haman who's crossed with a snake, and if the toxic creature was crossing with a snake, how it would look like. But once again, that would have to be a high level creature to be able to hold the bone structures in a logical way that would keep it looking like an original animal it was based on. But thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe, and I will see you later. Bye!